Lancaster, Pastore, and Whitehouse on your left. Pastore had a great season, actually, on the Pro Tour circuit. I don't even know what to call it now. Mythic Championship circuit?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Sure.
That
sounds weird.
Wizard circuit.
Wizards of the Coast official pro circuit.
But back in the last season of those sorts of rankings, Kellen achieved the rank of platinum. That flew a little bit under the radar, I suppose, as far as these things go, but had a really great 2017, 2018. One of the best players in the tournament, if not necessarily the highest profile.
I believe he also put up 50 Mythic points this year on the circuit as well, which would normally be platinum in the past. But here we have both players, Ali Warfield and Casey Lancaster, starting off here in match number 1 of the day. Warfield, with a slew of permanents, going to play 5 total permanents, including an Emery, Lurker of the Lock, on turn 1. Let's see if Lancaster can match. Mountain here, and a Lightning Bolt on the Emery. That's going to slow that down a bit. No response from Warfield.
Good news there for Lancaster, having the Lightning Bolt there. These Urza decks, if there's a vulnerability, it's just a finite number of cards that matter. Possible that Warfield's hand from here is just a dead end. Mana and cantrips. Yeah,
Warfield chooses to pop the Mishra's Bauble, which notably turns off the Mox Opal for just 1 turn. Let's see what her turn 2 will bring. That turn 1 was quite explosive. Looks like an Injure Explosives and another Arkham's Astrolabe in hand, so plenty of artifacts to turn on the Mox Opal. Let's see if she has anything to do with that extra mana. Mox Opal active now since Injure Explosives was played on 0. Second Mox Opal, floating mana, playing a good Lotus Petal Impression. Here's an Oko, Thief of Crowns on turn 2. Quite the card against the mono-red deck here.
Yeah, this card, I think, is probably the top of the list of why Mono-Red Prowess sees so much less play than maybe it saw 6 or 8 months ago.
Sure.
All the modes are extremely punishing for this sort of strategy.
Yeah, the ability to gain life, shutting down your creature's abilities with Prowess, all quite good. I will say this, though. Those creatures that you play usually pretty cheap, usually come down before Oko, but because of that turn 1 Emery, really changed the texture and landscape of this game.
Yeah. If Lancaster had an opportunity to play a threat first, it's not hard for the Prowess deck to be able to attack down an Oko on the second turn. A couple of spells gets it done. But, having to spend your first turn on that Lightning Bolt means it's going to be a lot more problematic. And it's not easy for the Prowess deck to beat a slew of 3/3s either.
All right, looks like Monastery Swiftspear is the only play from Lancaster this turn, and a Fire Islet.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
I was waiting for someone to fix that. Lands before spells. Sir, this is not a Denny's, okay?
No.
There's not syrup on the back of your cards. Follows that up with a Soul Scar Mage and a Fiery Islet, going down to 19 life points. Let's see what Warfield can do. That Oko down to 5 loyalty now from that 1-point attack from the hasted Monastery Swiftspear. A lot of options at Warfield's disposal, including an Abrupt Decay in hand, it looks like. And the required mana to cast it thanks to the Arkham's Astrolabe and Mox Opal, even though the deck has a ton of snow-covered islands.
Interesting to see here if Warfield wants to... I'm going to go after the Soulscar Mage. That is interesting to me because it is not a 1-2 with Prowess in the spot is not appreciably different than a 3/3.
Oh, for sure. I think that there's merit to just turning your food token into a 3/3, perhaps putting up some amount of defense. I think the problem with that is that you actually kind of like the life from the food token, and making a creature means that you're probably going to be a little more vulnerable to some removal spell when your Oko gets attacked down. But I agree that a 3/3 is not that much different than just a 1-2 Prowess for sure.
Yeah.
Warfield passes turn after playing a second Arkham's Astrolabe, and here we go back to Lancaster. Let's see if he can find a way to take down this Oko. There's a crash through to trigger the Prowess on the Swiftspear and draw a card. Mountain's the pickup. Can potentially play 2 more 1-mana spells this turn. Second crash through. It's going to make that Swiftspear into a 3/3. Now we're threatening lethal coming at the Oko. Let's see if Warfield has a response.
And this is my concern with the play from Warfield the previous turn is the Elk is literally the same thing as the Soulscar Mage would have been.
Sure. But to be fair, she wouldn't have been able to really block with a 3/3 of her own either, right?
Right, but a 3, I would prefer to have a 3/3 than not.
No,
you know
sure.
what I mean? But
certainly fair. You want to keep your artifact count high as well. It's important to make sure that you don't like accidentally turn off Mox Opal.
There's a ton of considerations.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. My intuition there was just get the battlefield kind of gummed up on your side and start from there.
Sure.
But yeah, there's a lot of ways to try to manage it.
All right, we're going back Lancaster's way after a food token was turned to a 3/3 Elk. See if Lancaster can chop down this Oko. It's really hard to do, but I have faith in the Mono Red prowess if anybody can do it.
Yeah, looking at a hand of another crash through, a burst lightning, a light up the stage. It is, as you can see here, even with Warfield not really having a whole lot else going on, the Oko is just a lot for this deck to slog through. On all fronts.
Yeah, it's not like Warfield really did a ton else, right? She played an Emery on turn 1 that died, Oko on turn 2, and an Abrupt Decay. Hasn't done much since, and the Oko, I'd say, is kind of hard carrying. But here we have a Burst Lightning to the face. That's going to turn on Light Up the Stage, just cast shortly after, but Warfield has the Metallic Rebuke for it to shut it down. And now a second Light Up the Stage from Lancaster reveals 2 spells, a third Light Up the Stage, and a Monster Swift Sphere, but no mana to cast either this turn. Lancaster taking his time, passes the turn.
Yeah, there's a question there if you want to be trading the Elk for an Elk or just hang back. I think in a deck that can possibly chain together a bunch of Lightning Bolts, you have Bedlam Reveler. If you want to get this Oak off the battlefield, you're better served allowing both players to have Elks than having neither player have Elks.
Sure. No, I see a lot of people trading creatures in combat all the time when they have a bunch of spot removal spells in their deck. And they could usually leverage appeal to spot removal to potentially chop down a Planeswalker.
Right, exactly.
So not trading here, I think, is in Lancaster's benefit. But not by much, but by a little bit.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there is the consideration on the other direction of, Warfield's overall artifact count is of value. There's something to be said for getting them off the battlefield, but I think the ship has sailed on that. If Warfield, the Emery's going to be cheap. If she draws an Urza, the difference between one artifact or not is not really that significant.
No, I agree. So Warfield here turns the relatively useless 0 counter engineer explosives into an Elk. Now has 2 3/3s defending against 1. Draws Ether Spellbomb for the turn and casts it. You have to imagine she's probably going to cycle that at some point, but the value of that card in the deck like this is that with stuff like Emery, you get this cycle effect that also has the ability to interact attached to it. I watched Edgar Maguies yesterday use 2 copies of Ether Spellbomb against Infect, leverage that quite well.
So there's a couple good things about the Aether Spellbomb here. One, it's just an insurance policy against Lancaster having an explosive prowess turn that gives him some hope of being able to assail the Oko. The other is, I believe it's a permanent answer to Bedlam Reveler. Should that show up? Because you can, the trigger goes on the stack, you unsummon the Bedlam Reveler, and then it's discarded to the trigger.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say it is quite the beating against a Bedlam Reveler here. Lancaster decides to hard cast the Light at the Stage. No burn spell to turn on the Spectacle cost, but does find a land off of the Light at the Stage to hard cast the Monster Swift Sphere from last turn, so that's not going to disappear. And now the Soulscar Mage is kind of in limbo for a turn, but no real way to attack that Oko, so going to pass it back to Warfield with no attacks.
Yep, and that's going to be a recurring theme here is no way to attack this Oko.
There never is. Doesn't seem like.
Not for this strategy.
Now, at this point, Warfield has the board relatively gunked up, knows that one of the easiest ways for her to lose is for the Prowess creatures to become larger than their 3/3s, potentially knock down the Oko via crash through. Goes ahead and turns the other Prowess creature from Lancaster into a 3/3, and now the creatures are basically on even footing. Follows it up with a Gilded Goose, making another food token. Seems like every card in this Sultai Urza deck just generates an extra card.
Yeah, I mean, the entire deck is really just mana, cards that look at cards, and then a handful of payoffs that care about artifacts.
Which one does Urza fall into?
Payoff that cares about artifacts. It is also mana, but
and cards.
But only through the prism of having artifacts.
Sure.
Yeah, it's still subsidized by that.
All right, Lancaster here with a pair of lands in hand and a spell that I can't quite tell. Kind of looks like a crash through.
Appreciate him playing it out from here.
Oh, yeah, he's way dead.
Stronger will than me.
This man clearly doesn't like to go get lunch. Draws another land, I believe. Or fourth life at the stage, excuse me. It's going to be cast for the full 3 mana once again. No prowess triggers either, because these prowess creatures have been turned into elks with no abilities.
Yeah.
Lancaster is thinking about whether or not to cast this live at the stage. Mostly out of juice, but live at the stage is a powerful one, and finds a way to draw cards as well with the Manamorphose, hopefully drawn into something like Bedlam Reveler on the following turn to have a burst of cards, though it will be pitched from its own ability thanks to that Ether Spellbomb, more than likely.
Well, another issue of just Oko in this matchup from the other side of the table is, sometimes the battlefield gets a little gummed up, and you can play through that kind of stuff with Crash Through and your big prowess turns, and Oko turning your stuff into Elks cuts off that dimension. And then all the food that's laying around means that the backup just kind of lava spike and lightning bolt you out plan doesn't work either.
Okay, looks like we have a pause in the match. Just a quick judge question from Warfield's side. I'm curious if she's actually asking about the interaction between Bedlam Reveler and Ether Spellbomb, because here is a prime spot to actually crack the Spellbomb and draw a card.
Yeah, it would not be the worst for Warfield to find, her position's extremely good right now.
Right.
The Oko is going to be very hard to beat. One payoff is probably good enough.
Oh,
no.
That's sick.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Warfield sees the line of bouncing her own Engineer Explosives back to hand that was an elk. Now can cast it for X equals 1 and blow up all 3 creatures from the opposing side. That will destroy her own Astrolabes and Gilded Goose. So perhaps not as clean as she would like, but still something at her disposal that she can do.
Yeah, well, Urza as a draw step also kind of...
Not bad?
It's not bad
not
here.
Not a bad one.
Do you want to know why?
Why? No, seriously, explain why.
It's mana and cards. It's a payoff for all the artifacts.
Nice, dude. All right, looks like she's going to use blue mana, tapping the Arkham's Astrolabe with Urza's ability to cast Angel Explosives for X equals 1. Still has the option to Oko something. Doesn't even have to crack the Angel Explosives if she doesn't want to. But I feel like she wants to actually close this game quickly. Wouldn't be surprised here if she pops the Explosives, cleans up all the creatures from the opposing side, and then uses Oko to make the other food token into a 3/3 and starts cranking in for 6 damage.
As long as she just keeps pushing the buttons. It doesn't really matter how they get pushed.
Right.
All paths lead to a win, I think, as long as you just keep activating Urza and keep activating your Oko.
All right, Engineer Explosives here are going to be popped, killing 4 permanents from Warfield, only 3 from Lancaster, but as you can see, there's still way more permanents on Warfield's side of the battlefield. And now Warfield can rumble on in with one of those 3/3 Elks and start trying to close this game out as early as next turn, probably.
Big turn coming for Lancaster. Big turn.
Well, it's an important turn. We'll see if it's a big one. Better be a big turn.
Your mileage may vary on important. Here we go.
Okay. Manamorphose, it could be anything.
Yep.
Oh, Runaway
Seeker.
That's a good start.
Is there Experimental Frenzy in this deck?
I don't think so.
That could be actually something that could power you through a spot like this. I would be surprised.
So two red floating from the Manamorphose. No alternate colored spells in this deck. Manamorphose there. Just a trigger Prowess and Cycle. Fill the graveyard for Bedlam Reveler.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, I actually typed up Casey Lancaster's deck list before this, so when I said I don't think so, I meant to say there's definitely not.
I was trying to imagine the one card that could facilitate a comeback from this spot.
Sure. All right, well, looks like we have a pair of Runaway Steamkins. No mana floating now for Lancaster. Has Mountain as the last card. Going to go ahead and throw a lava spike upstairs. No, in my opinion, no reason to really go after the Oko at this point. Okay, never mind.
Just in the tank on this one.
And now,
Casey, I wouldn't stress on that. I wouldn't stress on that call. Whatever you come up with is fine.
Lancaster here could actually use the 3 mana from the Runaway Steamkin to crack the Fire Islet and maybe drop Bedlam Reveler. With Lancaster being so far behind this turn, I would have loved to have seen that just as a gamble.
I'm not into it. If the top card of your deck is Bedlam Reveler, you get a good shot at the same line next turn.
Unless the Runaway Steamkin gets poofed into a 3/3, and then you don't have that extra burst of mana.
Well, you have the other Runaway Steamkin going up to 2, and then your 3 fresh ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess you then have a 6/6 Runaway Steamkin, which is pretty hefty.
Right, yeah. It's not that turn from Warfield is not that bad for you if you assume the top card of your deck is Bedlam Reveler. So I'm fine with Casey just sort of playing a little bit more. I don't know if you want to describe it as conservatively, but not pushing that hard at least.
Right. Warfield going to go ahead and activate the Urza, giving it a spin. Going to reveal the top card, see if it affects the battlefield before making any decisions with Oko. So the Gilded Goose. Not the best hit, but not the worst. Makes another food. It's more fuel for Oko to turn into a 3/3 elk over the next few turns. And Flutter trying to pick up for the turn, which can also fetch up Mystic Sanctuary and maybe get back one of those instant sorcerers out of the graveyard like Abrupt Decay. And with Breeding Pool and Mox Opal, she can cast it next turn if she so chooses.
Yeah, again, her shop set up very well here. There's probably a line to play as efficiently as possible, but as long as she just keeps hitting the buttons, I think she's going to be fine from here.
Yeah, there's something I say quite often. It's that it's, in my opinion, anyway, in tournaments like this, especially when you're playing decks like Urza, it is much more important to make any decision quickly than it is to make the right decision slowly.
I agree on 2 fronts. One is you really need to avoid draws, something that has already happened to this team in this tournament.
Right. And
the other is there is just a cumulative cognitive load and fatigue that comes in and trying to optimize every decision every round.
Yep.
And you're way better off just playing, as you mentioned, fast and close enough in these spots.
Yep. That's my forte.
Yeah.
Like 80%, but lightning speed.
Right.
4x, you know? What's future shifted or our time shifted match? Sorry, it's been 3.5 months since I've done coverage. I forgot what it was called. All right, looks like we have just a Monastery Swift Spear and a crack at the Fire Islet from Lancaster. Does grow the Runaway Steamkin, but no real play after that. Warfield going to go ahead and crack her Flooded Strand, looking for a Mystic Sanctuary. You have to guess. And that's going to return one of those instant sorcerers from the graveyard. I believe it's just Abrupt Decay, but I'm not positive.
Well, Abrupt Decay is a fine prize in this spot. That should clear the way enough for Warfield to feel comfortable attacking, certainly with the Construct and maybe even some Elks as well.
I would like to see a giant attack this turn with so much food to protect your life total from actual burn spells. The Abrupt Decay taking down a 4/4, and Lancaster basically passing turn with access to 6+ mana, maybe more if he has any instant sorcerer in hand. Even if you lose a 3/3 elk from a block, it's not really a big deal. So, but before any attacks, we're going to spin with the Urza. Oh, thank God. Somebody finally did it.
They just said
the
no.
deck is randomized. Just flip the top card. Ask your opponent, can I just flip the top card because it's randomized? The answer is yes. It's Mind's Desire.
Yeah.
Right? These kids, I almost said a really bad word. These kids, oh my. All right, Allie Warfield. Thank you. Making the matches go faster. Finds an Emery, mills 4.
Now you gotta start attacking. I mean, it's good to do the shortcut.
Oh yeah.
You really want to,
She's already saved me 5 minutes of my life. Just basically never shuffling again in this match whenever she activates an Urza, unless the deck needs randomization, which, of course, sometimes it does via mulligans and things of that nature.
Right.
All right. Just making sure, getting some tips from Donegan here. Donegan, long time, great player here on the SCG Tour. And at these team events, you do get a lot of help from your friends, which is nice.
I like this attack. It seems pretty safe, especially with Abrupt Decay in hand.
Oh, yeah. Abrupt Decay in hand.
Good-looking attack.
Let's go ahead and make one of these Food into a 3/3 elk. Let's get this over with quickly, please. This game's been over for about 5 turns, but Lancaster refuses to concede, which there's always a chance. There's strings of Bedlam Reveler draws that maybe can get you there.
Yeah, it's not, it's definitely a game that could theoretically be screwed up by the opponent.
Yes.
You're at least in that kind of territory to play it out. And yeah, with Runaway Steamkin in the deck alongside Bedlam Reveler, you do have a shot of looking at 15 or 20 cards in one turn.
There it goes.
But not this time.
Lancaster looks at the top card and packs it in. We're going to have a 1-0 game 1 for Ali Warfield here with Sultai Urza against Mono Red Prowess. I know yesterday Overturf was talking to mad junk about how good Mono Red Prowess was against Urza. Gotta tell you, it didn't look very good that game.
It might be good. I believe it's good against the non-Oko parts of the deck.
Sure.
But Oko is a really challenging card to beat. And you saw it on display there. Warfield had a turn 2 Oko on the play. Didn't really have a whole lot else going on for a while.
Yep.
And it was still too much to overcome for Mono Red Prowess.
Yep. All right, let's take a look at the players' sideboards here as we get into game number 2. Lancaster side, we have 4 Leyline of the Void, 3 Blood Moon, 2 Braid, 2 Bone Crusher Giant. That's an interesting addition that I really like. I love that card in Pioneer. 2 copies of Dragon's Claw and 2 copies of Smash to Smithereens. What you like here, Patrick?
I'm in the Smash, the Smithereens, and a Braid. They're not great here. They're fine.
Yep.
I also could see Bone Crusher Giant being an upgrade over some of the other cards in the deck because there are a reasonable number of stomp targets.
No, I agree. Emery specifically, but also Gilded Goose.
Right.
Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised to see all 6 of those come in. Like you said, though, the disenchant effects are not very good against this Urza deck, specifically because they're able to generate so many actual permanents. The actual artifacts don't matter that much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even honestly know about a Braid. That might be below the bar. Smash the Smithereens is probably an upgrade over something like Lava Dart, which there aren't that many targets for. But for a deck with a lot of artifacts, it is very resilient to anti-artifact measures.
You're forgetting the best target for Lava Dart.
The player.
The player.
Yes, the opposing player.
All right, let's take a look at Warfield's sideboard with this Sultai Urza strategy. From her side, we got 3 copies of Fatal Push, 2 Ashiok Dream Render, 2 Mystical Dispute, 2 Ceremonious Rejection, 2 Thoughtseize, 1 copy of Assassin's Trophy, Tireless Tracker, Veil Summer, and Weather the Storm. Patrick, what you like?
The 3 copies of Fatal Push here are excellent. I like Assassin's Trophy in this matchup as well. And Weather the Storm is right on the line for me. It is good against a range of the Mono Red Prowess draws, but certainly not good all the time. That one for me would be more of a function of if I had cards I actively wanted to get out of my deck, rather than whether I specifically wanted Weather the Storm in this matchup.
Sure. Well, if you look at the right side of your screen, you should see that nice-looking Karnox chair that Ali Warfield's sitting in. If you are interested in picking up one of the best gaming chairs on the market, Karnox has got your back.
Save 10% at checkout when you visit at karnox.com/SEG.
Now, I have to stress, you got to go to karnox.com/SEG to get the 10% off. It's not a creator code. That's going to be the only way that you get that 10% discount when you go to checkout. Karnox chairs, we've been using them here for about a year on the SCG Tour. They're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. That's it.
They're great.
That's all I got. We got your back. Karnox chairs, put your butt in us.
I sit upright on these while we're covering them, and then I use them to nap when I'm off the air.
Hell yes.
It's the most flexible chair I've ever been in.
Versatile. Couple results from our backup matches. Callum Pastore takes his first game against Dylan Donegan in the Sultai Urza Mirror. Evan Whitehouse takes his first game against Lee McLeod's 4-color Wurza. Lee McLeod's iteration is a little bit different from the rest, playing the Whir of Invention aspect. So backs not really against the wall just yet. No matches have concluded, but currently down 2-1. Warfield, the lone game winner of the first one. You know what I'm trying to say.
Lined up against the lone non-Urza deck of the set.
Yeah. I wonder if Lancaster's getting carried. If he's just been the dumpster all weekend.
No, I think the Prowess deck is totally fine.
Yeah.
It's not a weak deck. It's just vulnerable to Oko.
Sure. I mean, I feel like a lot of cards in Magic are just vulnerable to Oko. So
yeah, it's one
that's
of those,
like a non-statement.
It's one of those you'd stop seeing the things that are bad against Oko because it's so hostile and so ubiquitous.
So both players here ready for game number 2. We'll start with Lancaster on the play, going to lead with a Soul Scar Mage. Back to Allie Warfield's turn 1. Let's see if she can have an explosive of a turn here as she did in game 1.
And a lot of this game is going to come down to Lancaster's ability to get onto the battlefield out in front of Oko to be able to threaten to take it down in one attack.
Yeah, especially in the face of the +1 on poofing the creature.
The issue here is, the deck is really saturated with one-drop prowess creatures, and engineered explosives can blunt a lot of the most explosive openings.
Oh, for sure. Engineered explosives, in my opinion, is one of the better uses of Emery in these strategies, being able to have that kind of recursive sweeper. I think kind of single-handedly makes decks like Elves invalid.
Right. And a lot of these things, like the Aether Spellbomb in the deck as well, they are such a powerful dimension to have at such a low opportunity cost.
Right.
Having an Aether Spellbomb is just, it's another bauble. It's a little bit less efficient on that front. But some amount of the time, the threat of looping unsummons is what wins you the game. Explosives, you can just play on its own, and it's an artifact for all your artifact stuff. And some percentage of the time, your opponent is locked out by looping engineered explosives.
Right. All right, a couple things being played here from both sides. Warfield on her turn 1 played explosives on 1 and a Mishra's Bauble, but chose not to crack it. Here for Lancaster, his turn 2 play was a Runaway Steamkin. So Warfield has an answer to Soul Scar Mage, doesn't quite have an answer to the Runaway Steamkin just yet. Let's see if she has something like Fatal Push out of the sideboard or maybe one of those Abrupt Decays from the main deck. Going to be a little hard to cast, though, thanks to that Snow Island.
Yeah, Abrupt Decay is not a good response in this spot without an Astrolabe or a Mox Opal.
Right.
Fatal Push would be excellent.
Warfield decides to crack the Mishra's Bauble, targeting the top of her deck. Going to take a peek. Decides it's not quite good enough. Going to shuffle it away with a Misty Rainforest. Shocking for a Watery Grave down 16. An update from her back table. Kellen Pastore wins against Dylan Donegan quite quickly. So you're going to see Donegan here interacting in this match a lot since this is a team event. Can definitely give some guidance and help in some of the tougher spots. But a fetch shock and a pass turn on the Watery Grave, to me, has to kind of signify that a Fatal Push is coming.
Maybe use of explosives.
Maybe use of explosives. No, that's certainly true. Manamorphose for Lancaster, that's going to pump both creatures. Runaway Steamkin getting a little bit closer to ultimate status, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of Lava Darts in Lancaster's hand. This could be one heck of a turn. No, Casey, we don't have prowess tokens. Just use a dice.
How confident are you that that's the case?
I don't know. Maybe he's playing. Okay.
Oh,
floating
okay.
mana.
Red in the pool. Gotcha.
Got it. I mean, that is important with Manamorphose and the Runaway Steamkin. That's fair. That's fair. All right, here comes Lava Dart from Lancaster. That's going to give Runaway Steamkin his third counter, which can help it generate 3 mana. Also, 3 copies of Prowess have been triggered. But Warfield does have the answer, so that Soulscar Mage is relatively neutered. But Casey is going for more.
Yeah, might as well have a big turn here if you think the play is just going to be an Engineered Explosive activation.
Right. So, removes the 3 counters from Steamkin. Goes up to 4 red floating. Down to 3. Light up the stage. Trigger back on the Steamkin. A million counters on the Soulscar Mage. Allie, can you please blow Engineered Explosives so we can get the dice off the screen? Wow, Bedlam Reveler is the pickup. I'm pretty sure Lancaster can play out his entire hand this turn thanks to that Runaway Steamkin. Let's see these fireworks, folks.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 3 red in the pool. The Lava Dart effectively acts as a Simian Spear Guide as well if he wants to do it that way.
All right, down to 2 red floating. Lightning Bolt to the Dome Ski.
It's a good-looking turn.
Yeah. All you got to do is empty your hand. Everything costs 1. Float a bunch more mana. With Runaway Steamkin, you can play out your entire hand. Down to 1 floating. Steamkin up to 4.
And still has not played a land this turn, right? Because we're on his turn 3. So he can play the last card in his hand, land Bedlam Reveler. 6 red in the pool.
All right. Floats a bunch more mana with Runaway Steamkin. Still hasn't played a land for the turn. Bedlam Reveler with none in hand gets to draw 3. Draws 3 more 1-mana spells. This could basically go on forever.
Yeah, this might actually be lethal. Remember, there's still 2 darts in the graveyard, too.
My
so
Lord.
Warfield's at an effective 9. 5 from the Steamkin.
Yeah.
Some bolts here might be able to finish this game off if all that Warfield has to show for her turn is an Engineered Explosive activation. And we're going to find out soon because if she doesn't activate the Engineered Explosives, the 1-drop is going to be lethal from the million spells that have been played.
Right. Another light up the stage. Wow, this is an impressive turn 3 here from this Mono Red Prowess deck. Feels a whole lot like playing a Mono Red Storm deck. Yep. Thanks to the mana generation from Bedlam Reveler, or from Runaway Steamkin. It's really running away with it.
Good one.
Yeah, not really. No, I get it, okay? I get it.
Yeah,
it was fine. All right. Rudimentary mathematics happening here. Another Lightning Bolt. It's going to send Warfield down to 8 with 2 copies of Lava Dart in the graveyard. The Prowess creature is certainly lethal. Warfield has to at least kill that, and you have to imagine that it's just going to be Engineered Explosives. Otherwise, she would have killed that Runaway Steamkin long ago if she had a Fatal Push.
Right.
And decides to pick him up. I don't blame her. This is going to be a no-way-out situation. Even when she pops Engineered Explosives, next turn going to have to face down a Steamkin and a Bedlam Reveler. 2 Lava Darts in the graveyard. Might even be dead this turn.
Yep. Can let it go.
Life totals might have also been incorrect, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Because we have already gone over these sideboards here and we don't want the match to finish off camera, we're going to go ahead and jump into our live 3rd match between Whitehouse and McLeod. And we're going to see if Whitehouse can win this one for his team right now. It's pretty early in the game. Both players here just kind of jockeying for position. Doesn't seem like there are any relevant permanents on the battlefield in that they can potentially close the game by themselves. Bit of meta development. Pith and Needle, we're going to see what that's naming and get that for you in just a moment.
Yeah, from Whitehouse's side, there's a little bit of how well can you set up shop while playing around Metallic Rebuke.
Right, and I think the biggest difference between these 2 decks is that the Sultai or Simic versions are usually much more reactive, where the War of Invention ones are way more proactive with things like War of Invention to try to get that Thopter Sword combo on the battlefield via Goblin Engineer, War of Invention, and the fetch lands for Mystic Sanctuary. All right, life totals are correct here. 16 for Lee McLeod, 10 for Evan Whitehouse, and that Pith Needle is currently naming Oko Thief of Crowns. So one of the more potent tools from Whitehouse currently locked down. Let's see if he can figure out a way to win the game without it.
Would have been a great spot there for Whitehouse to have his own copy of Urza.
Right.
It's not appear that he has it.
No, the deck is relatively reactive. Potentially has stuff like Cryptic Command. Just use a Mystical Dispute on an Urza to keep that in check. Let's see what the follow-up here is for Lee McLeod. All right, McLeod here conferring with teammate Dylan Donegan. Trying to come up with the best play for the turn, how to play around these counter spells. It's a tough one to figure out because sometimes you just got to run your head straight first into a cryptic command, but sometimes you wait to kind of overload the cryptic command over the course of like 2 turns or 2 spells in the same turn.
More likely to come up post-board, too, when you have Mystical Dispute. That's a really good card to set up 2 spells, play over the top of 1 counter spell sort of sequences.
Yeah, exactly. Cloud here in the tank. Donegan giving a suggestion. Shrug shoulders. I don't know, man. Maybe just play a spell.
Right.
Maybe Pastore. It's all contextual, too. It all depends on which counterspell Whitehouse has, if he even has counterspell or, you know. Wow, here makes a food token with a Gilded Goose, draws for turn, then passes. Pastore watches on, curious. His match is concluded. Doesn't want to give away what's in Whitehouse's hand, trying to basically just let him play his own game. Team events occasionally are a bit stressful because not only do you want to win your own match, but you also want to help your teammates win. But occasionally you end up sometimes being a detriment.
Definitely. Oh, yeah. I got Chad Castell killed in one match, giving him advice in the last team one we played in.
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's always a beating, but
you know, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you do what you do.
And then Chad and I had to sit there, and I was arguing that it was my fault for saying anything, and Chad was arguing that it was his fault for listening to me. You know.
Was that the tournament where you were playing Sneak Attack?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was actually the one right over Turf one with Liz Lynn and Jacob Hagan, I think.
No, that was the one after. I think I was not.
Oh no, it was Philadelphia.
Yeah,
and they won the one in Baltimore, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. All right, in turn, Whitehouse makes another food token, draws for turn, tapping 3. Gonna play an Oko. It is currently locked down via that Pith and Needle, but it might be important to get it on the battlefield in case he ever draws an answer to the Pith and Needle. Doesn't have that card kind of stuck in hand, or it's already on the battlefield. Turn goes back to McLeod. 2 mana for a Thopter Foundry. This one could be a heater. See if Whitehouse has the answer. A lot of little mini actions happening.
Yeah. A lot of mana left over here, so something like Mystical Dispute's not going to play.
Now, what just happened here, and just to clear things up, McLeod casts Thopter Foundry. In response, Whitehouse cracks a fetch, but in response to that, McLeod cracks his own fetch to guarantee that he has 4 mana here to work with before anything could potentially happen to strand him on just 3 with that fetch. Mystic Sanctuary is the pickup from Whitehouse. Going to put something on top of his deck. Let's see what he does. Looks like an Abrupt Decay. Smart pickup. Taps 3.
Yeah, I'm guessing the goal here is to decay the Needle and then go from there.
Yeah, could decay the Needle and go from there. Could also just have a counterspell here for the Thopter Foundry. It is pretty scary.
Yeah, there's no way for the Abrupt Decay to be bad next turn, because if the Thopter Foundry resolves, great, you have an answer to that. And if it doesn't resolve, you still have something to do with the Needle as a high-value target.
Right. All right, here comes Veil Summer here to protect the Thopter Foundry from Archmage Charm. Going to even draw a card. That Veil Summer really putting a hurting here on the Sultai Urza deck. And that Thopter Foundry resolves, but it's going to be vulnerable to this Abrupt Decay on the top of the deck. Could unlock the Sultai if he targets the Needle. Could contain the Thopter Sword combo if he goes after the Thopter Foundry. Could even do a combination of both by Abrupt Decay the Needle and then target the Thopter Foundry with the plus from Oko.
Yeah, it's a lot of good answers to text boxes of all sorts.
All right. I would say Whitehouse is behind this game, just because McLeod has the ability right now to make 3 Thopters, thanks to the Sword of the Meek in the graveyard. Here comes Abrupt Decay, targeting Pith and Needle, and a sacrifice here in response, making a Thopter, gaining a life. Now the Oko is unlocked. All right, Patrick, give me your best take on how Whitehouse gets back in this game, because I feel like he's going to be pretty far behind, lowish on life, 3 Thopters coming his way trying to chop down the Oko. What's his path to victory here to take the match for his teammates?
Well, In the event that so you have Gilded Goose as a blocker for one of the Thopters.
Okay.
And you have the ability to generate some food. So in terms of getting killed in the short term, Whitehouse is fairly safe. If he's judicious about protecting the Oko, he can at least buy himself a lot of turns to a big draw. If things keep as they are right now, I agree with you that McLeod has the advantage. But the game is not so far out of reach that Whitehouse is not drawing to one of his big draws.
Sure.
So he just needs to buy himself some time here.
Well, there are 3 food tokens and the ability to generate a 4th on Whitehouse's side of the battlefield right now. So you have to imagine that all of these creatures are going to be swinging at Oko, because Oko, to me, is the thing that's going to keep Whitehouse alive long enough for him to potentially claw himself back into this game.
For sure. I think trying to just run down Whitehouse gives him a lot of draws, and it also amplifies a lot of his middling draws. Like, a removal spell as a draw step is so good if he has Oko on the battlefield, and it is really poor if he does not.
Exactly.
So if you can get the Oko off the battlefield, he's basically just drawing to the top end of his range. With an Oko on the battlefield, a lot of his sort of secondary and tertiary best draws become a lot more effective. So I think you want to get the Oko off the battlefield as soon as possible.
All right, we go to Whitehouse's way. McLeod triggers the bauble, draws a card. Oko is protected from the Goose Chump block. Down to 1 loyalty, going to tick up to 2 more than likely, and turn one of these food tokens into a 3/3 if you had to guess. Well, that might be a heater. Emery off the top can generate a little bit of card advantage, maybe find injury explosives if there's one in the graveyard to clean up all these tokens. Mox Opal becomes an elk. Just because those food tokens represent 3 life, a little bit better than the 1 mana here, since Whitehouse does have access to 5 lands already. Turn goes back McLeod's way. See what he can do.
I don't know. I mean, it's really thin. It's on the margins, but I think I'd prefer to transform the food, because I think transforming the Mox gives away the last card of your hand being another Opal, and I'd rather make it seem like a live card. And preserving your mana is more likely to make it appear like a live card.
Sure.
Small, but, you know.
So, interesting attack here from McLeod. Opts to not trade elk for elk. Could have shipped in with the Thopter Foundry, perhaps. Could have also moved equip before attacks. Interesting. The Thopters do take down the Oko, and some damage does come across, but Whitehouse going to spend a lot of his extra mana right now cracking some food tokens and gaining some life. I think McLeod probably picked up on the thing you just said, where because he turned Mox Opal into an elk, there's a high likelihood that the card in hand is another Mox Opal.
Yeah, it makes McLeod's incentive, do not trade off with the elk.
Yep.
No matter what, because the last card in hand is probably just another Opal.
Okay. Emery here going to target Arkham's Astrolabe just to get another card. You're really seeing the strength of Emery on display here, and this is the low end, you know, stuff like recurring injury and explosives, excellent. Mistress Bauble alternatively cycles while also costing 0 mana. Astrolabe, a reasonable pickup though. So fresh card drawn. Let's see if Whitehouse can string something together defensively here. Pretty far behind on the battlefield, but not by a ton. Not by a ton.
No, but it's still, the game is still within 1 draw steps range. Could flip very easily.
I think one of the things you're really seeing in this match here is the fatigue of playing these Urza Mirrors. Both players have so many permanents and have to make so many actions every turn that ultimately it just takes too much physical time. All the shuffling and everything, it just really adds up. We're in game number 2. There's only 6 minutes left on the clock. Even if McLeod's able to win this game in the next few turns, it's unlikely they finish the match. And that puts so much pressure on the Warfield-Lancaster match to not only just finish, but to conclude in the correct way for them to actually get a draw instead of a loss.
And then there's, you know, the other issue there, if you're playing a lot of copies of Urza, it's very easy for Lancaster to win in 5 minutes. It's much more challenging for Warfield to do so. Warfield is much more likely to draw games you would otherwise win.
Yep.
And Lancaster is likely to get draws in games he would otherwise lose. And so from sort of like the game theory win equity perspective, the decks that are playing faster are getting the better end of it when it gets to this sort of spot.
Yeah. Might be one reason to choose something like 4-color Urza over Sultai Urza or Simic Urza in the future, just because you do have that kind of I win button with the Thopter Sword Urza combo. So you don't have to just grind it out forever with Archmage's Charms and Cryptic Commands and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever covered a team tournament where I felt like the best deck in the format was prohibitively slow to the point that I would be concerned about playing a bunch of copies of it on a team. With
Sure.
day one structure, with a draw being a loss, I've never had the feeling of the incentives being that extreme before. But I do feel like we're here now. And these teams already, with a draw each, might be trending for a draw again.
Yeah, and a second draw here is really bad for both teams, I think. We're going to probably get down to the wire around round 13 or 14, where I think you're going to see X2s be like a lock for top 4, and X2-1 be like maybe in the running, and X1-2 I think might be dead.
Right, you might be. It might be about the same as a loss again.
Right. Wait, X1-2 is better than X2-1. I'm stupid. I don't know.
But still, like
Not
where you want to be.
That's true. So it might be the same as a loss, and I think that's the thing to really take away. Draws here are quite bad. And there's not really a lot either player can do. It's not like they're playing slowly. They just literally have to make 14 micro actions a turn.
Exactly, yeah. If you are trying to play the deck optimally, the sequencing of everything is really, really tricky. There's a bunch of discrete game actions every single turn.
Yep.
And it just eats into the clock. No two ways about it.
Yeah, it was. I watched a match last year where Autumn Burchett was playing the Paradoxical Outcome version of the Urza deck, and was playing a the one from Mirrodin that untaps whenever you tap, or whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, and it taps sack an artifact to mill 3 Grinding Station.
Yeah.
She used that just with everything that made an artifact to untap it, generated a boatload of extra mana with Urza. But it just created so many micro interactions that it made me want to leave.
Right.
Maybe just want to walk out of the building. All right, back to the match at hand. Whitehouse here performing some menial actions.
Did have a decay for the Oko, though, which is big.
Yeah, that's going to probably win the match for him, because if he wins, if this game ends in a draw, he actually wins the match 1-0-1. And that would ultimately win the match for his team, either 2-1 or 2-0-1. Ether Spellbomb here, taking care of the Golem token. Now, the token is gone from Urza, but he still has a whole lot of stuff. Getting word that the Warfield Lancaster match is actually potentially coming to a conclusion. We're going to cut over to that match because this game is very likely to end in a draw, which is very likely to have Whitehouse win. And we want to see a little bit of non-Urza v. Urza. An Oko here from Warfield on the battlefield with a food token and an elk versus, I believe that is a Smasher Smithereens and a Burst Lighting that have probably been revealed off a Light Up the Stage that can be cast next turn. Monster Swift Spear and a food token from Warfield's side. Is that a Weather the Storm in the graveyard? Wonder how much life that gained.
Yeah, like I said, a little shaky of it in this sort of matchup because sometimes the Prowess deck is so dominating with the presence on the battlefield, or they're boarding into Shatters. It just doesn't line up the right way necessarily.
Sure.
But it does have, the Prowess deck has enough elements of it that are similar to Burn that, it comes up some of the time.
Okay. even though the clock is sitting around 40 seconds right now, these players do have a bit of a time extension. Normally when we do team events, we like to hold some of the matches so that we get the conclusion of the match on camera. I believe, well, if Lancaster wins this game, his team wins outright. If Lee McLeod's able to win his game against Whitehouse, there's a good chance that this whole match ends in a draw.
Yep. These two players, though, will be receiving a time extension. So that clock that you see, put another 5 minutes on it, and then these two will go to time. Should be enough for this game to reach its natural conclusion, but not a guarantee.
All right, Warfield here. 2 snow-covered islands and a breeding pool. Can't quite cast that Abrupt Decay in hand. Might have a bit of other interaction here. Chose to turn Monster Swisser into an elk. Here comes Burst Lightning plus Lava Dart to chop down the elk. And now a 3/3 elk is going to rumble in to hit the Oko for just a bit. Now Lancaster has the option to sack one of his 2 mountains to Lava Dart the Oko permanently.
Just doesn't seem that threatening for Warfield to have the Oko for 1 more turn to be able to make a food. Really surprised by that. So I guess the sequencing there from Lancaster of using Burst Lightning Lava Dart instead of Smash, I guess Warfield could just sack the food.
The food tokens actually lose the super type of artifact.
Okay. Word. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, then never mind.
No worries. It's very unintuitive, honestly. Because they keep the name and the casting cost.
They become green, but
they become green.
They lose artifact. Okay.
Yep. So here, Warfield passes back after making a food. The 3/3 elk does come in and take care of the Oko. Crash through post-combat because there's no real reason to play it on the main phase. Warfield draws for turn, finds mana number 4, perhaps unlocking something like Urza from hand and potentially putting one of those instant sorceries from the graveyard back on top of the deck. Maybe that Weather the Storm. Decides to just pass the turn after playing the Flooded Strand, though. Back Lancaster's way, draws for turn. Handful of spells, but no prowess creature to take advantage of it. Finds a monster Swiftspear for the turn, though.
Might see a cryptic command coming here. Warfield
would not be surprised.
Didn't do anything for a couple turns there, and then with land number 4 just passed.
The Swiftspear is still on the stack. Warfield conferring with Donegan. Decides to let it resolve. Both creatures going to ship in here. Now Warfield can fetch for Watery Grave and cast Abrupt Decay on one of these creatures. Potentially has a lot of options at her disposal, including just fetching for a Mystic Sanctuary and putting Weather the Storm back on top of the deck to gain a bunch more life next turn. So I don't think her life total is really in that much jeopardy, especially if she takes care of one of these creatures right now.
Yeah, it looks like Warfield here wanting to unlock some removal spells in hands, go with the Watery Grave in lieu of Mystic Sanctuary.
My guess was that a bunch of Fatal Pushes and things were cast early off of Mox Opal, because you do see 2 copies in the graveyard already, at least. But Smash Smithereens took care of that Mox Opal, and she was stranded without black mana for quite some time. Now I think she's considering if she wants to kill or maybe... Or sorry, which creature she wants to kill. The Abrupt Decay can target the 3/3 elk or the 1/2 monster Swiftspear. Right now it's not really that threatening, but it could pose more damage later on than the 3/3 elk. This turn, though, the 3/3 seems a bit more menacing, so going to take that one down instead.
Yeah, I mean, if it's close, I think the considerations of this turn probably crowd out whatever the ceiling is of the Swiftspear down the line.
Okay, well, here comes Urza in a Engineer Explosives for X equals 0. That's going to give extra mana for Warfield. My assumption here is for Mystical Dispute. Now there are 3 untapped artifacts, at least one of which can produce blue mana, thanks to the Urza.
Yeah, and match C there between Whitehouse and McLeod, that ended in a draw. So remember, Pastore won his match over in B very early on. If this match comes down to a draw as well, the match will go to Pastore's team.
This looks like an end of turn lightning bolt, probably targeting the construct. Now Warfield has the option here to counter this or to potentially let it go, but that would turn off the ability to cast the Metallic Rebuke. So going to go and counter that, protect the construct, because that's one of our easiest ways to close this game before time runs out. Remember, this is about to be turn 0 of turns. They're going to play 5 additional turns after that to find a conclusion to this game.
Yeah, I mean, that rebuke is probably not exactly what Warfield wanted to use it on, but your shields are going to be down anyway. The construct is a path to maybe close out this game in time, and as you mentioned, losing access to the Metallic Rebuke probably forces your hand there.
Yeah. So it looks like Lancaster here thinks that he can no longer win the game, is going to hold back the Monastery Swisser, my guess, to chump block or just block the Urza a couple times to prevent some damage. I think at this point, neither team wants to lose, and it would be in both of their best interests to try to win or draw.
Well, I mean, the burden is all on Warfield's team,
right,
because Kellen Pastore took the match.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. So it's.
Oh no, you're completely right.
Yeah,
so if Lancaster draws, that's the same as a win.
Right. Yeah. Lancaster can dribble out the clock here.
This is garbage time. Take a knee.
And the last card in Lancaster's hand is Bedlam Reveler, which gives you a lot of ability to fend off for another couple turns.
All right. Turn 2 of turns. And his Lightning Bolt plus Bedlam Reveler. I actually like Lightning Bolt targeting the construct here for sure. And that's going to completely reduce Allie's ability to win the game in turns. She basically has next turn and 1 turn after that.
Yeah, she's going to get 1 combat step, and she's got to beat the food also from that earlier Oko. It's asking a lot.
I agree. Now, that second Urza with the second construct was actually potentially a huge deal for closing out the game in time, but now it looks like she's just going to fall a little bit short, and Kellen Pastore winning his match over Donegan looks like it's going to be the deciding factor in this match, since the other 2 matches were unable to come to completion. I just want to point out, I don't think any of these players played slowly.
No.
A lot of times you watch a match like this and you see multiple match draws, and you can usually find a point where this player, took a little too much time shuffling or sideboarding or whatever.
Nope, not here.
Just millions of micro actions, and it's untenable, if you ask me. I do not like decks like this existing in the format, let alone being the best deck in the format that a lot of people have to play.
Yep.
Now, it's not over just yet. We got a spin from an Urza here coming down. If Allie can hit something sweet, that's a Mystic Sanctuary. Can get back an instant or sorcery, but most of those are going to be reactive, and she needs something proactive right now, and I don't think she's going to be able to find it.
Yeah, getting back an instant here, not very valuable when you got to cobble together a kill next turn.
Yeah, maybe if it was sudden death and life totals mattered, she could get back Weather the Storm. But I think that's just going to be an unintentional draw here between Warfield and Lancaster. And that is going to win the match for Pastore's, Whitehouse, and Lancaster's team. 1-0